Andrew Jackson, a controversial man and president. But who is Andrew Jackson? A hero, a villain?
Andrew Jackson was poor, and he was born in a log cabin on March 15, 1767. Andrew Jackson was a very angry, violent child. Perhaps this is because both of his parents died.
He was known as a wild child. When Jackson was barely 14 years old, served as a orderly in the military during the War of 1812. Jackson served as a general and pushed Native Americans off their lands. He even owned slaves and plantations.
Ooh, that good old AJ, Andrew Jackson. Drew, as I knew him. I can remember him back in the good old days of Tennessee. He was a tough young guy. Always getting into something. He would often tell me stories of the days of living in those log cabin in that poor, awful conditions. I really respect that man. He went from absolutely nothing all the way up to being the President of the United States. After the Revolution, I wanted him to become an attorney, and he took a leadership role. I was so proud of Andrew when he represented the great state of Tennessee in the U.S. Congress.
In the election of 1824, John Quincy Adams,
Henry Clay, and Andrew Jackson and William Crawford were running for president. Of the four, no one had enough votes to win. Therefore, the House of Representatives had to decide the winner. Henry Clay persuaded the House of Representatives to choose John Quincy Adams. In exchange, Henry Clay was to become Secretary of State. This was the corrupt bargain.
Jackson campaigned for the presidency in 1828 to defeat Adams. He was able to get votes from farmers who had now had the right to vote. No longer did you have to own land in order to vote.
I never thought I would live to see a day where I, John Quincy Adams, of the famous Adams bloodline, would lose my presidency to an uneducated, non-elite orphan boy from South Carolina. He only won the election of 1828 because of those southern and western states voted for him. In fact, he had to change the voting rules to allow more people to vote. When I was the sixth president, the wealthy had control. Now it's back to the hands of farmers, shopkeepers, and small businessmen.
Jackson helped the farmers by getting them to vote for him. Jackson wanted to reward his supporters by getting them jobs in the government. This system was called the spoils system. He kicked out the people that worked there for many years and put in office the people that helped elect him. Jackson rotated people from time to time within the government.
Man, that Andrew Jackson is such a great guy. He got me a job in the federal government. When that hooligan and cheat John Quincy Adams was in power, he only let the rich people of our country get in to have a spot in the government. President Jackson, that there changed all that. He got rid of all those rich guys that had been in power for way too long. He got me the chance to vote, and I supported him all through his campaign. And now, because of the spoil system, I'm getting my first shot at being a part of the government. I was lucky to be at that ceremony when he was sworn into office. People came from all around. Woo-hoo!
During Jackson's time as president, the Bank of the United States only gave loans to the rich. Jackson disliked this. When the chance came for Jackson to get rid of the bank, Jackson split it up into 23 different banks. He wanted to make it easier for common men and farmers to get loans. The wealthy people were mad because they didn't get loans as easy as they did. Now they have to compete with the farmers for loans.
Our country will be ruined by that hillbilly scoundrel who calls himself President Jackson. Before him, our government was placed safely in the hands of people like me, the elite and wealthy members of society. Now we are going to be ruled by people who live out west and are not refined Americans like us in the east. I'm sure he's going to try to take money away from the rich, the people who make money for the country. I can only pray that he only serves one term, or even better, gets impeached.
In 1828, Jackson signed a tariff called the Tariff of 1828. It taxed all goods that come from outside of the country. It wasn't liked by many of the southern states because they had to pay more money for clothes, so President Jackson lowered it a little, but the states weren't happy. President Jackson sent the army to South Carolina to stop the threats to leave the country.
When I was asked to be Andrew Jackson's vice president, I was honored. We were both slave-owning gentlemen that could move America forward and defend slavery forever. Then, in 1828, Congress passed, and that president signed into law a high tariff that I like to refer to as the Tariff of Abominations. This law helps northern manufacturers, and it hurts us southerners. It made goods that we buy from Europe more expensive. When we South Carolinians tried to nullify this tariff, which I believe our state or any state had the right to do, President Jackson threatened to use the U.S. military to collect those taxes. Not wanting to start a civil war, I backed away from this nullification. However, I could no longer work with this bully from Tennessee.